Thank you. And in closing, I would like to thank a nickel. Did you hear that? Cheap. Well, you certainly look clean enough and nice enough, and do you remember what you thought the room with drunks was going to look like when you got here? It wasn't like this. I mean, you're all sitting up. I have had the privilege of talking in Europe, of practically visiting every state in the United States, all the provinces in Canada. Never once, ever, has a conference started with the chairman saying, "Holy shit." And two newcomers said, "Oh, I knew it was going to be religious. I knew it." Oh, God. My name is Marty Jeffrey. I'm an alcoholic. I'm so pleased to be here, and so welcome. I've been made welcome here. I have been insulted almost from the time I hit the ground. It's just like home. I got in the car and Joanne said, "You're uglier close up than you are up on the podium." She's been a gracious hostess. I mean, they slowed the car down to 30 and rolled me out of it, so it was like getting home after a drunk, It's been a lot of fun ever since. I heard Tom this afternoon. It was a wonderful talk you gave, Tom. I don't know what, he was getting people to raise their hands, kind of a group participation thing. Of course, nobody would. We're alcoholics. We don't participate in anything, And it was just a classic talk on what alcoholism isn't. And if you didn't hear it, get the tape. He says he only sold one other tape. He needs the sales. I am, I hope, going to talk about my story tonight. You're the first people that sit still long enough to hear it, so I'm going to tell it. But, I have on many, many occasions after I have finished talking been approached by someone who said, "Don't you know that this is a life and death program?" I tell them, "Yeah, I do." My brother-in-law, 3 years ago, threw a rope over a balcony and hung himself publicly. Yes, I understand. I have sponsored people that have drowned in their own vomit. I know it's a life and death program, but a big part of my recovery is laughter. And I checked it out in the book. It's right here. It says, there is, however, a vast amount of fun about it all. I suppose some would be shocked at our seeming worldliness and levity, but just underneath there's a deadly earnestness. Know what I mean, Vern? Faith for us has to work 24 hours a day, or we'll perish. So forgive me if we have some fun tonight. It's part of my recovery. Thank you. And I find laughter healing. I just do. Sometimes I get in these rooms and I just marvel at the way that I can listen to a speaker and think, "I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't like you. I wish God would strike you drunk." And I walk out feeling better. I don't know why that is, but I think it has something to do with this idea of us being colossal human failures brought together in this alchemy, this Alcoholics Anonymous, this miracle, this thing that says that every day is a brand new day. Screw it up any way you like. You've made it this far. Start your day at 2 or 4 or 8. Can everybody hear me, by the way? Can you hear at the back? Should have got here earlier, shouldn't you? Great. Anyway. You see, that's what the Friday night speaker is. It's to test the sound system. Tom did a beautiful job this afternoon of describing an alcoholic. The two things I know about my alcoholism are, A, if you'd have got me out of the gutter and lifted my head out of my own barf and asked me to sing the song that was upmost in my mind, it would have been, "I did it my way," It's page 62, self-centeredness is the root of our problem. And I also know that alcoholism comes in people. It doesn't come in bottles. And so those are the things I'm going to talk tonight about. I'm not going to talk about my drinking. There are people in this room that literally have spilt more than I drank. Very, very sloppy drinkers. And I mean, I was a teenage alcoholic. I was in a hot bathroom at the age of 11 with a head full of Loganberry wine. That's an amazing, that's got any other compound on earth buttload. I mean, it goes down dark purple and comes up kind of a foamy pink. But when you wet yourself, it's clear. That's what I like best. And I had my first spiritual experience on Loganberry wine at the age of 11. And I got on my bicycle and I had my first traffic accident. I rode into the back of a truck. I skinned my knees. I went home. I vomited on my brother. I got beat up. I got thrown in the bathtub. My mother insulted me. My sister walked in and saw me naked. It was humiliating. I got to school the next day and said, yes! I loved it! That's how you know when you're alcoholic. Anybody else would have quit said, screw that, I hated it. I said, yes, I feel like I belong. How do you spell relief? L-O-G-B-E-R-Y, Loganberry. Choice. I mean, at 11 years old, I was mad as hell. I knew already I was screwed. Everybody seemed to understand where they fit. I didn't understand what fitting even meant. Love to me was a connection you made when you wanted to get something out of somebody. I mean, I remember all these thoughts. I thought about doing myself in at age 11. I was just as chronically alcoholic as hell. Because this thing progresses whether you drink or you don't drink. And it's like diabetes. You can get it at any stage. So if you're in the room tonight as a, well, like one guy described, at a zoo trying to find animals you cannot identify with. You will find enough differences to get out of here tonight and walk away and drink some more, perhaps. I mean, I used to be real jealous of the guys that hung out there for 40 years. I used to think, why did I have to get so bad so fast? I mean, they've been out there suffering for years and years. I want that. I was 22 years old when I got kidnapped into Alcoholics Anonymous. No. I went to this meeting and there was these old people, some of them 40, with big stomachs that they called serenity pouches. And they were talking about going up and down some stairs. 12 stairs. And one guy was stuck on the 5th stair. And another guy yelled, you don't do that 5th stair, you're going to get drunk. I said, where the hell is it? Let's get to the 5th stair yet, you know. I didn't run in here and say, oh, I feel so bad. I mean, I was just a suicidal, very sorry 22-year-old. Didn't have any idea what was wrong with me. And I mean, I didn't even phone Alcoholics Anonymous. I had gone out and gotten drunk. This may surprise some of you. Incidentally, if there are any visitors, friends of Alcoholics Anonymous in the room tonight, and this doesn't make any sense, that's okay. That's really okay. Because if it does make sense, there's a meeting list outside. You know what I mean? I had done the Alcoholic National Anthem. You know, dear God, get me out of this, and I will never drink again. I had been in a pub in Canada where I was born. Way before I should have been born, incidentally. Anyway, there was a wrestler in there by the name of Sweet Daddy Siki. And he mentioned something about wrestling, and I told him wrestling was nonsense. It was just acrobatics. He said, really? I said, I could beat you up. He said, really? And then he talked about inserting my arms into orifices in my body that this couldn't even go into. And then it got dark. I don't know if you had this problem when you drank, but it always got dark. It wasn't that I didn't know where I was. It was that I didn't know where I was. And it was that one of those things. And the next scene, I'm laying on the sidewalk out in front of this pub, and there's a guy sitting on my chest. And he said, if you go back in there, he's going to kill you. I said, he's fat. Anyway, I hate him. I'm leaving. I got in my car. It's dark. Now I'm in an accident. I'm mad. My brand new, redone, mint 1959 T-Bird is all smashed up. I get out of the car. I'm going to just rip this guy's face off. I can't. The car's empty. It's parked. I've hit it. I hate that. I hate those kind of things. Nobody saw, so I drove away. Now it's dark. Now I'm at the A&W. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. Can't get you for impaired if you're a passenger, right? I'm wearing a Mama Burger. And I remember, staff party tonight. They won't have a party if I don't go to the party. Did you have that at the end of your drinking, where people are talking to you and you're hearing one thing and they're actually saying something else, like, Marty, we're having a party tonight, we'd like you to drop by. And I hear them say, if you don't come to that party tonight, Marty, ain't going to be a party. Now, you might not have any money and you certainly won't have any liquor to bring, but you can drink ours. And then we'd like you to smash all the furniture. You can just drop by. It would be a great party if you drop by. Well, that's what I thought I heard them say. And I went to their little staff party, and there was the president of the company. And I thought, I got food all over me. He would look funny with food all over him. And I hit him right square in the face with a pizza. At this point, a man walked up to me by the name of Bill Story, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, I would like to buy you a drink. I said, why? He said, because you're such an asshole. And I don't have to be like that anymore, and I feel like I owe it. That's true. I took his drink. Because you know what? I agreed with him. I agreed. It was then unanimous. Now it's dark. Now I'm in front of the apartment with a girl, and it's not my wife. Now it's dark. Now I am with my wife. And I'm in big trouble. The phone's ringing. It's a friend. He says, you are in a lot of trouble. I couldn't really remember what happened in the dark areas, but I knew it was bad because he, wanted to have a conference, and it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he tells me all these things I've done and the trouble, and I mean, it was a mess. And that's where we joined me on my knees in the radio station I worked at, in the urinal, beside my buddy Jim. And I'm saying, hi, Anybody got a search, right? Anyway, Jim, he couldn't. I wanted to quit. He didn't understand why, when we're having the big time we're having, I would want to quit drinking. And I told him, because I'm in all of this, I may lose my job today, Jim. It's just every time we drink now, we seem to get in trouble. And he said, it'll straighten out. It always straightens out. You overreact. Well, it did straighten out. You know how that goes? 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm out of trouble. And I'm trying to remember, when I was praying to God this morning, asking him to get me out of this, did I say I will never drink again? Or did I say I will never drink again to excess? I would never say I would never drink again, so it must have been never drink again to excess. And besides, what a day I've had. Really, when you think about it, I've been in trouble, I'm unhappy, I'm going to go and have one beer, ease off a little bit. You see, I didn't know about the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know that it describes in there on the 21st page what a real alcoholic is. A person who might start off as a moderate drinker but could become a continuous hard drinker. But what differentiated me, made me alcoholic if you want, is that once I start to drink, I cannot control the amount I drink. It's just that simple. There are only 2 questions in alcohol. You don't need 20 questions. 2. When you start to drink, can you control how much you drink every time? 2. If you try to stop, can you stop and stay stopped? Those are the only 2 things you need to know. If you can't do those things, welcome. Get a cup of coffee and keep coming back. I go over to the bar. A bus goes by me. On the side of this bus, there's a kid in bed with a baseball mitt and his little hat. And the bus sign says, a few drinks after work with the boys, what does it cost? I thought to myself, I can't imagine how awful a person would have to be to leave a little guy to miss his baseball game to drink. I'm going to drink. I've got a kid at home. This is called denial. Couldn't identify with the billboard. It was many years before I ever really grieved that billboard. I go to the bar, I have a couple of drinks. I'm sitting with Jim. Jim suddenly looks very surprised. I said, what happened? He said, you just slapped me. I hate when that happens. I hate when you slap somebody and you don't know you slapped him. The night got just crazy. It was just like, if you're alcoholic like I'm alcoholic, the more I drink, the thirstier I get. It's incredible. I could be barfing my guts out and thinking, if I could get a drink, I know I'd feel better. Now it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Somehow I've got this wife of mine in tow and this kid. And we're being thrown out of an apartment block by a very obnoxious person. We get into the smashed up T-Bird. We hit the bridge on the way home. I'm condensing this because it's just sad. I come sober. Just now. I am completely sober, and I remember a thought going through my mind. Now, you might say your sobriety didn't start with a prayer. I don't know. Mine did. I guarantee this, swear to God, I said the real, honest-to-God prayer that an alcoholic says when enough's enough. I said, I am going to die, aren't I? And I meant it. I knew it. I knew that I was going to go, like Bill said, on with that legion of thoughts into infinity, marching to, all of those pictures went through my mind. Most of all, a picture of myself when I was 16 years old sitting with a guy named Clint and him pulling a revolver out drunk and saying, I bought this to kill myself, and putting it to his head. I said, don't put it in your head, put it in your mouth, because you'll make a mess if you put it in. Boom! He blows his head off. You know, when you're an alcoholic like I'm an alcoholic, you start out and you got a bunch of free tickets. You know, just ha, you roll the car. Ha, you break into a bank. This, that, fun, and then the reality starts. It starts like the book says, like the rapturous creditor. It starts to pull things in. And those things were happening to me. Death, the madness and the blackness, and the fear were on me all the time. And all I could think about, the thought that every suicidal person has, is that it would be better for everyone if I was just dead. And I drank to die. And it might have appeared to those around me that I was drinking for fun, because I used to try and laugh, and I used to try and do crazy things. It wasn't fun. It was monotonous, and it was lonely, and it was full of fear and madness and anger. You know, I was out running in Rochester today, and I saw myself coming down the street. It was this guy, there's nobody near him. He said, I'll tell you another thing. You son of a bitch. And he's all alone. That's me. Except I got a way to get rid of the resentment. When I was drinking, I had those conversations. 3- and 4-way conversations. And I had this moment of clarity that they talk about in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was alert and I was awake. And then it was morning and the phone was ringing, and it was my sister. My nosy sister. She asked one of those questions. You wonder how they think them up, don't you? Right? How are you? Fine. I said, I'm so sick I could die, Laurie. I don't know what's wrong with me. She says, out of the clear blue, do you think you might have a drinking problem? No, I don't have a drinking problem. Drinking is about the only thing I do real well. I have a problem because I have you, and I have that bitch that I married, and I have that radio station, and I have problems. She said, if I called alcoholics, now somebody had been to her, because she would have normally fought with me. She said, if I called Alcoholics Anonymous, would you talk to them? I thought, great. Now I've got to help Alcoholics Anonymous. I haven't got enough problems. Now, you got to understand that God has a sense of humor. Right? I mean, why else, in formulating Alcoholics Anonymous, if you think about this, like the encyclopedia would say that a medical authority joined together with a financial expert to formulate a treatise for the alcoholism outbreak, pandemic outbreak, that crossed America. What really happened is that a doctor, a proctologist, met with a bankrupt idealist, lawyer, flunky. A proctologist is a guy that works with broken rear ends, by the way. Okay, you're starting to get the picture here? I mean, it's still going on like that. We work with broken rear ends and bankrupt idealists. God has got the most tremendous sense of humor, because I had married a Norwegian woman and I hated her. I hated her with a... Actually, I hated Norwegians. Because her father, when I used to bring her home, he used to say, flirt again the bird, the heat of her. I always wonder how they do that in signing. To flirt and anyway, what does this one mean? So anyway. I don't blame him today for hating me, because I wouldn't want somebody like me going out with my daughter either, but I didn't understand that. You know, to me, he was just Norwegian obnoxious. They eat fish called a lutefisk. Have you ever seen this stuff? It's cured in lye. It's gross. And they used to force-feed this to me at Christmas. I think the biggest freedom I had in Alcoholics Anonymous my first 6 months of sobriety was telling Oren I wasn't eating the lutefisk. That's the truth. I said, I don't have to eat it anymore. I don't drink. See? Anyway, who does God select out of the million people in Alcoholics Anonymous to carry the message to me? A Norwegian. With a brush cut, and he's an amateur comedian. I'm sick as hell, and he says, I understand. You even drink when you're not thirsty. You know, it's really funny, Dwayne. And then he took me to this meeting, and I mean, here's these fat guys and the stairs and the coffee. They're drinking coffee like any minute someone's going to rush in and say, where with the coffee patrol? You put that goddamn coffee away now. And it's just the most disjointed conversation you ever heard. None of them were on the same subject. They're all talking at the same time and going, As soon as the other one would stop, the other one would start. Right? That's the picture. At the end of it, the head guy gets up and says, if you want what we have. And I thought, right. Let me see now. Yeah. The choices. Yeah, let me see. There was death. Yeah. Insanity and going to meetings. I'll take death. Give me death. No, I never want to be like you. Ever. I don't want to be fat and bald and old. I don't want to have to come to these meetings and listen to other people tell what it was like, what happened, and what it was like, and what happened. Hated it. Got out in the car. Dwayne says, how'd you like the meeting? I said, I loved it. Good meeting. Almost makes me wish I was alcoholic. It really does. You know, you guys have really got something there. He took me home. I couldn't believe it. At 8 o'clock, he comes back and picks me up for another meeting. Very strange, because I kind of thought I'd blown him away. We go to the meeting, a bunch of these fat guys from the first meeting, and a couple of girls. Hookers, I figured. Right? Well, think about it. Alcoholics, right? Must be hookers. And they said, you can ask anything you want. So I put up my hand. I said, are you guys hookers? They said, no, we're not hookers. No. But occasionally we pick up an anemic little puke like you in a beer parlor around midnight, you know. And if he was good, he got lucky. And if not, I never knew. You know, guys always talk about getting the ugly girl. They wait for us. They do the picking, you idiots. It's been going on since the beginning of time. Big shock to my ego. Anyway, we get out of the meeting. I explained to Dwayne that was probably even a better meeting than the first meeting. Loved it. But don't want to go there anymore. Not alcoholic. Take me home. The next night, he's there to pick me up for another meeting. I said, I don't want to go. He said, I don't care. I said, I have rights. He said, you don't. I said, listen, I am not alcoholic. He said, you are so sick. You couldn't even choose whether or not you're alcoholic. Get in the car. Now, he's 6'5". He's 240 pounds. He says, would you like a drink? I said, yes. He said, good. We'll get you a beer. And then we're going to beat the snot out of you because we don't want you hurt by strangers. Get in the car. Get in the car. My wife's in the background going, give it to him, that jerk. No. He says we got a 90-day deal, and here's how it goes. You don't drink for 90 days, you come to these meetings, and then if you don't like it, we will give you all of your misery back, and you can go die someplace else. I thought, okay. You fat Norwegian jerk. I can do that, but I'm going to make your life miserable. And I did. And he brought in recruits. This guy tired me out. They'd hand me off from one to the other. Fresh, new, obnoxious people. People I'd never seen before started coming into my life. One of them said, you're having trouble getting a God, aren't you? And I said, yes, I am. He said, from now on, I'm God. I'll make your decisions. He said, you will turn your life and your will over to the power of stand. Do you understand? 90 days of listening to this. 90 days of the same story. Because when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I couldn't hear. It wasn't that I didn't want to hear. I couldn't hear. You can't listen and be so scared you want to scream every minute at the same time. You can't do it. I was full of fear. I wanted them to shut up long enough for me to scream, somebody help me, but I didn't know how. And they said, you know, you come back to enough meetings and eventually your mind will follow. And all these little cute sayings. And they said, this is a fellowship. And we have no dues or fees. And then they pass a hat. Where's the hat? And then they had committees that as soon as you know what you're doing, they kick your ass off of them. None of it made any sense. Well, my sponsor, when he was a pigeon, and they call them pigeons, you know, because when you're a pigeon you squawk and like that, and when you're flying high and feeling good you crap on your sponsor. That's why I call them pigeons. When he was in his meeting, they had a collection for New York, and he went to put money in, and they said, have you done your step 5? And he said, no, I haven't. And they said, well, then you can't put money in. We don't accept outside contributions. This doesn't make any sense to me. I'm 90 days old. I have no change in attitude. None. I'm thinking to myself, tonight's the night. Dwayne's invited me to Gratitude Day, and I got lots of it. As soon as this meeting finishes, I'm going to get absolutely juiced. I'm going to flatten the tires in his car. I was just thinking of all the stuff I was going to do to this guy. It was going to be just... There was a speaker there. Some of you may remember Wesley Parrish. Just absolutely beautiful. I loved him. He was short, fat, and rich. That's what I really liked. He finished his talk. A bunch of people came up to thank him. He walked right off the stage, right up to me, and he said, what is bugging your butt, boy? I said, you are. He said, get out in the parking lot. I thought, oh, God, now Dwayne sicked him on me, too. This is where you come to understand that the biggest secret you have is the largest generality in Alcoholics Anonymous. That thing you're afraid to tell everybody, we've done it. It's incredible. Like a guy said one night, if you came to a meeting and admitted that you'd made love to a zebra, somebody would say, well, at least the one you had was female. You're not, you think you're packing something different? Forget it. AA priests go to sleep when we're doing our stuff. You know, you wake up, you know. I go out in the parking lot with Wesley, and he starts telling me some of my secrets. So I thought, Norwegians, they can't even shut up. Dwayne's told them everything. And then he started telling some secrets that Dwayne didn't know. And then I thought, her. He's been to her, because these were her and I secrets. And then this little man from Florida headed into a bunch of secrets that nobody knew. And I had a profound spiritual experience. Alcoholics make noises when they have these. They go, huh? What? It was like, who is this guy? And he said something to me I want to share with you tonight, and I hope you can take it out here. He said, have you known all of your life that you had something to do and you've never known what it was? I mean, like you always knew you were okay inside. You always had this kind of feeling that there was something you needed to do, but you never put your name to it, you could never come to it. I said, yeah, I've always had that. He said, that is what it is. Like, we are spiritual seekers. We've got this thing we got to do, and we can't get from here to there. We're so frustrated, we drink. We seek and we seek and we seek and we ask and we can't find. And the more we become convinced that we will never, ever find, the more alcoholic we become. My thought is this. Alcoholism is nothing to do with losing your house, your family, your car, your job, your self-respect. Those things will happen if you stay alcoholic long enough. But what makes me alcoholic as hell is that I lost hope. Completely, totally lost hope. It was like everything became the same. It was like, don't talk to me, don't try to help me, don't kill me, do kill me, I don't care. It was hopeless. And there stood this little man, and he said this to me, and I had, for the first time in these 90 days, hope. And I just hung on to it. And I left that meeting, and I said to this hostage, that some called a wife, you never guess what happened to me tonight. I'm going to stay sober some more. She didn't know once AA got you, you could ever drink again. She kind of looked at me strange. She thought once they got you, you're screwed. They'll beat you up if you drink. So, she didn't. I went from a drunk to a monk. I got so spiritually minded, I was absolutely ineffective. I mean, I just got so God-conscious, you know. And I would say, it tired me out. I'd go to the meetings and you guys would swear and I'd pray for you. Oh, just pray and pray. So some son of a gun would be mowing his lawn Sunday morning. I had to pray for him, and I was just forgiving people. I forgave her for the way she treated me. All the dumb stuff she was doing with the kid, and then I had to forgive them. The Norwegians in general was a biggie, but I did it. I forgave the whole, screw it, the whole country. You're all forgiven, you know. I quit going to AA because it just was too tiring. I'm in church, sizing up the females in the choir most of the time, being spiritual. I don't know if you've got one of these guys in your group. They're dangerous for them. Dwayne used to phone me, this big Norwegian, and he'd say, how are you doing? I'd say, good, and I was just going to lay some spiritual altitude on him, and then he'd tell me a dirty joke. I'd forgive him, you know. And then when I'd go to my spiritual altitude stuff, he'd hang up. Anyway, one night he phones, he says, would you like to hear a really spiritual tape? Like, I think I found it, Marty. I thought, I'm going to get to save my sponsor. This is great. Out we go in the car. He puts this tape in. It's a comedian by the name of Nestor Pister. Okay? Nestor's not really high on spiritual things. So I pulled the tape out. I broke it. I didn't mean to break it, but I broke the tape. Now, I had never seen Dwayne angry before. But suffice to say that this very large vein in the middle of his head was going from one lobe right over. I've never seen anything like it. It was like, whoa. And he just slammed that car into a curb, and he said, listen, you, Mr. Spiritual. He said, I got more spirituality in my ass than you got in your whole body. This guy's getting tough to forgive, you know. So I said, how would you know that? He said, I'll tell you how I know that. Because he said, God is a God of serenity and peace and joy and love and forgiveness, and you have none of those things. Nothing do you possess except that you want everybody to believe your way. He said, you know what? You've finally done it. I don't want anything more to do with you. Get out of the car. Go die someplace else. I have had enough. I mean, I got kicked out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I just knew he was going to write New York and have my name taken right out of the records, you know. At the same time, I'm in the church the next day, and the minister comes up to me, and he says, when you're in church, and I'm at the front, and I'm preaching, who's the audience? And I said, the people. He said, no, not the people. God is the audience, Marty. That's what we're doing there. I'm talking to you about his love. You're recognizing that we're celebrating his love. And all of that is like an aroma to him. It's like we're worshiping God together. And I got, one of those, uh-oh. And I thought, I got to go back to AA. Now, I want you to understand that I know that there's lots of people in this room that go to church, and I think church is fine. As long as you're not a phony poop like I was. It was me that was wrong, not the church. My attitude stunk. I didn't want to be with God. I wanted to be God's right-hand messenger. I mean, the same guy that phoned Dwayne in about my 4th week of sobriety and said, Dwayne, I can't do step 3. If I make a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God, he'll send me to Africa to be a missionary. And he said, what would they do with an idiot like you in Africa? God would never do that to those people. I went back to Alcoholics Anonymous. I walked into that Sunday morning meeting, and one of the old-timers said, "Hallelujah, the Lord is back among us." And I heard another one say, "There but for the grace of God goes God." And I thought, oh God, I'm home. Oh, thank. Stan got me out in the car. He said, Marty, it isn't that what you did was wrong. It's just that we're these seekers, and it wasn't good enough for you to get God in the normal manner of having a spiritual awakening. You wanted it all at once, you know. That's true. I mean, I just pushed my way into the throne room and said, "Here I am, use me." And God said, "Oh." He probably said, "Oy vey." Well, it depends on whether or not you adhere to the Jewish thing. Anyway, I get back in Alcoholics Anonymous and I start to do the steps. My life is unmanageable. I'm doing everything I don't want to do. I'm doing nothing I do want to do. That's unmanageability. And I'm powerless, because when I drank, I couldn't stop drinking, so I'm powerless. That was easy. I am coming to believe that there's a power because Stan and Dwayne. I believed in them. And they're returning me to sanity, because sanity is not doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. They would say, you do this and you do this and this will happen. And that, my friend, is how I developed faith. I used to sit around in front of that Bible when I was a Petey the priest. I used to sit around and I'd say, God, give me faith. Give me faith, Lord, give me faith. And God would say, Marty, give me a break. Like, do something, you little turd. Do it. Do it and you will get a result. And once you've got a result, then you will come to believe. See? It's like sitting in a chair. I mean, for years and years, I've tossed myself into chairs. I had to develop a faith in chairs before I knew for sure they'd hold me up. That's how this thing works. This is an action program. And so I made a decision to toss myself into Alcoholics Anonymous, to do the things that they said I should do. And that's as far as I got, and I sat waiting for my spiritual gift. Yeah. Doesn't happen in step 3. Book says it starts in step 5. For people like me that I'm starting to have a spiritual experience. Maybe you got knocked off a jackass in the desert. I didn't. Didn't happen for me like that. See, at the end of step 3, when I made a decision to turn my life and my will over to the care of God, I had done nothing more than reported for duty. And I mean, I just worked with a lot of drunks. I just walked with the drunks, and I talked with the drunks, and I went to convention after convention, and I stayed sober. And by the time I was 6 years sober, I had the big secret. AA doesn't work. Right? Stuck on the wall, saying, oh, hi, good to see you. And those newcomers with all that hair. I hated them. And I hated worse the fact that the old-timers liked them newcomers. I was a middle member stuck with the secret. Wait till they find out AA doesn't work. You see, AA doesn't work. Not if you're trying to take it in by osmosis. This is an action program. I'm sitting at a meeting one night in Winnipeg, Canada, and there's a guy by the name of Tommy I speaking. He gives a wonderful talk. I'm thinking to myself, who set these tables? They're all wrong. And look at these people. These are all awful-looking people. They look like they escaped from Kmart. What the hell am I doing in this place? I hate this place. I hate that speaker. I hate everything. He finishes talking. Everybody stands up. I stand up. Oh, God, thank God it's over. All of a sudden, it was like an LSD experience, you know? Some of you dudes from the 60s, you remember that stuff? Everything going on. Hey, 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 hey. I hated that. That's why I think drug addicts have a big time of it in AA, is because my fear was going out of the world. I always wanted to be in the center of everything. I mean, I could be in my room alone, drunk, running General Motors. You put me on them drugs and I feel like I'm out of control. I hated it. My fear was coming out. Their fear is going in. And it must be very confusing. I'm so grateful that NA happened and that we're able to support that program and love through that program. A lot of different fears. This thing is like somebody put acid in my coffee. So I run across the street to where my family was in a hotel. My wife's in bed. I slam the door, and I must have looked like hell. She says, what's wrong? And I shared with her. I said, shut up. That's how I always shared with her. It takes years to learn how to take AA home. Years. I used to close that door and it was different in there. You know, the guys, hey guys, great meeting, love God, and walk in and go, sad. I did a very loving thing for her. I left her. Anyway, I go in the bathroom, I get on my knees, and I just started to pray. And I opened the big book. And there it was on page 85, just out of the clear blue. I don't know why I went there, but it said that my sobriety was a contingent deal. That it was contingent on maintenance of my spiritual condition. It was like the letters stood right out of that book. And as soon as I read that, I went quiet, just totally quiet. And I went to bed and I slept. I used to say, the teacher will appear. See? And I was ready. I was open like a flower. And God sent into my life some people to teach me not the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. I almost died trying to live on just fellowship. See? They brought me the book, the steps, the program, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they gave me understanding as to why the program works the way the program was. See, the fellowship says many, many things. It will tell you things like, you know, if you just take tomatoes and vinegar, you'll never have to drink again. I mean, I heard that at a meeting. I had a guy one night at a meeting describing that he could get his capillaries readjusted. The fellowship is opinions and observations and things we've heard other people say, and the love and the absolutely necessary. But the program is the program, and it works every time you work it. So I did this step 4. I made a list, and I found out it says in there you made a list of the people you resent, period. You don't analyze anything, you just make the list. And then I went back to the list and I analyzed it, and I did it like the book said. I had a spiritual experience, a change, a profound change in attitude. I found myself, for the first time in my life, able to enter a room and not feel like everybody was looking at me. You know, and it wasn't that I hadn't been told. Old Dwayne told me years ago, Marty, when you walk in a room, you will never believe how little everyone cares. What a relief. What a relief to be able to go to a meeting and just share how I see it and know that I don't have to bring the tablets down from the bloody mountain. What a relief to know that everybody falls short of the glory of God, that we are all screwed up. What a relief. What a relief to be able to make mistakes. You know, Dwayne one time when I was about 11 years sober had me in a car and he said, talk to me about your step 10. I said, what do you mean, Dwayne? He said, how do you do inventory? I said, well, I go to bed. I think of everything I've done wrong. He said, I knew it. Don't tell me anymore. You're sick, 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 sick. Under the word sick in the encyclopedia, they should have your picture. Sick, sick, sick. He said, Marty, if you take something out of something, anywhere on the planet, anywhere in the universe, if you make a hole, it will fill with something. You understand what I'm saying? I said, no. He said, look, if you went in the sand and you dug a hole, what would happen to it? I said, well, I don't know. I guess it would fill with air. He said, that's right. It will fill with something. And if you don't put something really solid in there, it will backfill with whatever came out of it. I said, uh-huh. Like, I'm going to sponsor this guy someday. He said, Marty, when you go to bed at night, he said, it is a fact-finding, fact-facing job. Why don't you ask God also to show you the things that you were successful at this day? And then why wouldn't you try and concentrate on the positive things that you did this day? And if you fill those empty, gaping holes that were full of your shortcomings with positive thoughts, they will become positive things in your life. And I put that into practice. That has been a salvation for me, because I always lean to the negative. My daddy used to say, if you haven't got anything nice to say about somebody, Marty, let's hear it. I suffer from a perception problem. Alcoholism is a perception problem. I have learned to say, where there is this much shit, there is a pony. Do you? Can anybody grasp what they went through in 1935 and 1939? Bill's not working. Lois is in the department store. I mean, he's telling people, saying, when are you going to go back to work, you jerk? And day in, day out, the pressure. When the things started to happen and groups were calling in from all over the world with these horrendous problems, do you think that they were happy they founded AA? They thought they'd organized platoons of lunatics all over the world. Look, it says that we will trudge the happy road of destiny. Let me just sum up by telling you about my spiritual experience, because I cannot share with you anything more key to my recovery than this thing. You see, after I'd had this horrendous LSD experience in the speaker meeting and everything had come to pieces and I stood there one more time bare naked, no defense mechanisms. I knew for sure that the fellowship couldn't save me. I couldn't have Dwayne's sobriety. I couldn't have Stan's sobriety. I couldn't walk and talk like you anymore. I had to become me. Whatever that was, I didn't know. But there I was. And I said, what is a spiritual experience? And I was in a meeting I never went to, because there is nothing but jerks at this meeting. And my sponsor said, why don't you go and give them one more? You know? They're reading out of the big book. I thought, what a novel idea. And they read this little paragraph and come back with me. Bill's in bed. He has done all the steps. If you read Bill's story, they're all in there. Right? Ebby's sitting on the edge of the bed. Bill has just finished doing his confession, his fifth step, if you want, with Ebby. And then he drops it on him. He says, my friend had emphasized the absolute necessity of demonstrating these principles in all of my affairs. Particularly was it imperative to work with others as he had worked with me. Faith without works was dead, he said, and how appallingly true for the alcoholic. For, this is incredible. I never saw this before, but it's here. If an alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge on his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. Two things I needed to know there. One, spiritual is doing things for others. Work and self-sacrifice for others will give me a spiritual dimension. Action. Two, it says, if I don't do that, I will not survive and certain trials and low spots ahead. Now, if you've got a sponsor that tells you, don't drink, go to meetings, read your book, everything will be wonderful, you can share with him the old Mexican, adios, Jack, because it ain't like that. We are on the planet Earth. It does not care how sensitive you are. There are people sent to go to you every day. They're called family. They're called friends. They're called workers. They are everywhere. They drive me nuts. And the only one I hate worse is when I'm alone with me. Certain trials and low spots. What do? I throw myself all the harder into working and self-sacrifice for others. Same thing with the sex problems. Do you think God hasn't got a sense of humor, and yet the whole sex deal's on page 69? Like, grab a brain. It's, right? Come on. It says, when we are tempted, we throw ourselves all the harder into working with, not on, working with others. Do you know why? It's because people like me have no self-worth. If I was to draw an alcoholic on a blackboard, it would have a hole in it this big. And that thing can never get filled. There aren't enough girls, there's not enough liquor, there's not enough cars. I have made more money than anybody I know. You can shove all that stuff because it doesn't fill the hole. I promise you that. But I'll tell you something that fills me up every time it happens. It's one of those stupid newcomers blubbering all over. I'm so grateful, I'm so glad to be, you know. Feels good. Right? And they're going to drop it on you to the point where you can't stand their grief anymore. And you go, I love that look on their face. Working and self-sacrifice for others. You want a spiritual experience? Throw yourself into it. Clean house. Come on the happy highway. It really works. It really works. And it'll work every time I work it. It's like, it always reminds me of a story, you know, and I like to take credit for my recovery, but I tell you it's all God. And I'll close with this. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. It's about an AA speaker that's going to a conference to talk, and he's like 15 minutes late. And he's praying as he goes, as many of us do. And he's saying, look, God, I got to have a parking spot. It's not a big request, and it's not for me. Really, they need to hear from me. Right? So, if you would just provide this parking spot, just right in front of the church where I'm speaking, I won't ask for anything else. I mean, I've been doing my program. I've been working with others. I made coffee last week, for God's sakes. One lousy parking spot. That's all I'm asking. And as he drives up, a car pulls out. He says, never mind, I got one. I was laying by my swimming pool one day. I felt a shadow come across me. It was my 9-year-old son at that time. He's 6'1", like 170 pounds now. I call him Mr. Son. And he says to me, how much you got to drink to get into Alcoholics Anonymous? And I said, why, honey? And he said, because I want to get into AA, but I don't want to drink that much. I'll get back to you on that. You know, hey, this thing is in everything you are. This is a life. It will do for you what you cannot do for yourself. Just whatever you do. Somebody said to me one time, it's old and it's tired, but it's true. They said, Marty, for people like you, when you are deep in your own thoughts, you are behind enemy lines. Shut your mind up. Come on in here. Don't think. Don't drink. It really works. God bless you. And am I looking forward to this weekend?